For my lay paving project, there's no official site plan to follow or refer to, so I've decided to make a presentation to explain our site layout and our measurements. As we can see, here's our basic layout of our site. We will be paving around the main veggie garden, which is here in an E shape. We'll be paving two areas, one area here and another area here. We have the points of where our materials are, including the red brick stack here and the cream brick stack over here. We plan to use both colours to create a pattern in our paving areas. We also have the location of the house, which runs along the veggie garden. We have a secondary veggie garden over here, a shed where we keep some of our tools, and the delivery point for our sand and crushed rock. We have our site measurements set out here. As you can see, our main vegetable garden is 5,150 millimetres by 3,740 millimetres. Our paving areas are 1,030 millimetres by 3,000 millimetres. When we look at our area to be paved in between the veggie gardens, we must consider the fact that we have 6 posts. The 2 posts in the top right and top left corner of the paved area are 50 by 50 millimetres. The remaining 4 are 100 millimetres by 50 millimetres. As we can see down the bottom, there will be 10 millimetre overhang off the veggie garden, so we'll finish our paving at that overhang. The reason it's important to consider these posts is because we'll have to cut bricks to fit around each post. Next, we have a look at our determined brick pattern. We've decided to go with a basket weave pattern with a border. We'll be using the cream bricks for the basket weave, and we'll be using the red bricks to give it a nice, simple border. We decided to go with this pattern as it best fit the veggie garden, and it will in turn lead to minimal bricks being cut to fit around the posts. Next, we're going to have a look at our excavation and how we're going to determine it. We've decided that we want 75 millimetres of crushed rock, 20 millimetres of whitewashed sand, mainly because our screed rail is going to be 20 millimetres in width, and our brick is going to be 60 millimetres. So calculating all of that together leads us to have 155 millimetres of depth to excavate, but we're going to take 15 millimetres off that to allow for compaction. So overall, we're going to be digging down 140 millimetres. Once we have excavated, we can set out our site to create our desired fall. We've decided we want our fall to slant away from the veggie garden. This will allow for easy water runoff, so we won't have any pooling on our site. We will be setting up our pegs on the excavated level ground. Peg 1 will be 75 millimetres high, and peg 2 will be 50 millimetres high. Then we can set our string line or our rail along the peg. Our fall is around 1 in 100, or otherwise it's around 25 millimetres. Of our veggie garden site that we will be paving. We'll be paving in these 2 areas. Here's our delivery of crushed rock and whitewashed sand. For this project, we'll be using recycled pavers. As you can see, here are the red pavers we'll be using for the border, and here are our cream pavers we'll be using for our basket weave pattern. Step number 1 is to remove all of the grass in our paving areas. Here's the area after we've removed the grass, and we decided to dispose of the clippings in the compost. Next, we began excavating to 140 millimetres deep. This site has been excavated in the past, so we were quite confident that the ground was fairly level. Here's our area after we finished excavating. And as you can see, we dug out to the posts, but later on we would end up digging further out. Step 3 is setting up our rails. The approximate height of our posts was 675 millimetres from the level ground. We did not use pegs to set up the rails, though we did measure it 75 millimetres off the ground for the far end and 50 millimetres off the ground for the short end. We placed some crushed rock under each end of the rail to make sure it was at our desired height. Next, we began to add and screed our crushed rock into both sections of the veggie garden. As you can see, I'm screeding using a spirit level. This worked perfectly for the area we had to screed, and it kept everything level during the process. For step 5, we began to compact the crushed rock. This was the result. Next, we added our whitewash sand and we began to screed it using the spirit level and the rails. Setting up the sand rails was easy, all we had to do was lay it on top of the crushed rock. As we completed sections of whitewashed sand, we removed the rails and filled in the gaps as we went. These are the results of our lovely whitewashed sand, all completed and screeded in. Next, we began to set our guides and lay our pavers. In order to reach the back of the veggie garden, we used boards to lean on. When we completed sections of the paving, we used a board and a mallet to tap the pavers into place. As I finished laying my edging, I went through with a bolster chisel to move the pavers into the position I desired. Next, we added our whitewashed sand and began to sweep it in. The reason we did the sand before we put in our cut bricks was because we only had limited time before the rain set in. The following day, we began to mark, cut, and fit our remaining pavers for our border. Once our pavers were cut, I used a mallet and board to tap them into place. Once the majority of our paving was completed, we went back to the front and dug out a proper trench. We mixed concrete up and began to place it in the trench against the bricks to make sure they were in place. We also used it to place our last remaining bricks, and we made sure that they were level with the other bricks. Once the concrete had dried, we filled in the trench and added some more whitewash sand, and then we had our completed paving project.